I was born and raised in Zimbabwe. At the age of 13, my whole life changed. Zimbabwe was and still is an amazing place. But at the time of our move, we were going through political and economic turmoil. Things were very, very difficult for families that we knew and for people around us. So it was time to leave. Many families chose America, New Zealand, Australia, sun, sun, sun. My parents chose England. Yep, my thoughts exactly. So here I am at 13, having to pack all my belongings into one suitcase to start a new life. I was leaving behind my home, my friends, my family, my school, everything that I knew and loved. Zimbabwe didn't get any better. In 2006, the World Health Organization published our national average life expectancy age. It was 36, and I'm 33 now. So when I say things were challenging and difficult, things were very challenging and very difficult. So I was going through a mixture of emotions, excitement, fear, being extremely scared and anxious, in the back of my mind, hoping that the Spice Girls would get back together so I could meet them. Also thinking I'd potentially have afternoon tea with the Queen at Buckingham Palace. You know, a 13-year-old girl can dream in and amongst the chaos. So that was me, getting ready for this very, very big move at a very young but crucial age. At 13, I'd already learned two things: how powerful politics is and how truly it impacts people's lives. And another thing, how at the tender age of 13, I had no control over where I was going to be living, what I was going to be doing. That was up to my parents. I just had to go with it and trust that everything was going to be okay. So 2002, we come to Nottinghamshire, a nice small town in North Nottinghamshire where I thought, you know what, my MO is head down, blend in, you know, no one will even notice I'm here. Yeah, right. My mum had to pick the town with the least diversity going. So we stood out like a sore thumb. And I mean sore thumb. You know, we'd walk into restaurants, and I remember at the time, it would be silence from the minute we walked through the door, all the way to the counter, all the way till we sat down. I remember those long stares and awkward silences. Navigating my teens in the UK as a tall African girl, feeling really much like a foreigner because I was one, and also an outsider. So really trying to fit in was something I did. And I think I consciously always kind of did things that would make us feel, or make me feel like I just was one of you, or one of them, and one of the family. I remember trying to stick in even in school, and it was no different. I was the only African girl there at the time, so yeah, stood out again like a sore thumb. I remember my peers seeing something in me at the time that I hadn't seen in myself. They wanted me to represent them on the school council. I was thinking, me, the outsider, the foreigner. Okay, I'm gonna go for this. I'm gonna bring my all into this and see where it takes me. I was scared, I was nervous. I still didn't feel like part of the family. Those insecurities you have in yourself, and some of the real issues in and around settling into a new place. And there was experiencing of racism. There was all of those nuances of just being different in a new place and just trying to get on. So I couldn't believe they'd chosen me, but I, took it on, and I stood in school council. I later was then appointed to be the head girl. Couldn't believe it, must have done a good job. So that was something that was really pivotal, I think, in my school years, because it started to unpack my leadership skills. I went on to university like any good African child would. My parents fully expected that I was going to university. The only choice was what you're going to study, sort of, and where you're going to go, definitely. So I chose criminology and international relations. It was first criminology, but my dad did a gentle nudge with, what is criminology? So I was like, Dad, don't worry, criminology, international relations. So, reassured him that criminology was a thing. And well, international relations made him feel good about that. So settled into uni, first year, second year, fantastic. It's university, living my best life away from home. I got to choose this place. I wasn't just flown to this place. So I really enjoyed myself, and only I would decide to run for president of the African Caribbean Society in my third year, when indeed I should have my head down, and really I should not be putting my head up to do anything but study and get good grades. I ran for that position. Although I was nervous about it, something in me just said, go for it. I did, and I was elected. Again, another opportunity for me to continue to grow my leadership skills. Why do I tell you about these moments through my school life and university? Is because every moment in your life prepares you for your destiny. Doesn't matter how big or small the appointment, the position, the job, the role, the volunteering work that you're doing, just the things you're doing to sow into yourself, they prepare you for your destiny. And that's what exactly was happening at the time. I left university bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to take on the world. I was getting my dream job. This was really happening. It didn't happen like that at all. I really struggled to find that dream job and navigate the world as I saw it, because the world was changing around me, as it always does. So job hunting, got into different roles, ended up working for the Women's Center, and even that was because I entered a competition where 10,000 people entered and 500 people were chosen to work for a charity of their choice, and I was one of the 500 out of 10,000. So that's how I even got into that role. Again, just pushing myself forward, giving it a go. What was the worst that could happen? So as I was navigating coming out of the Women's Center and just figuring out who Nicolle wants to be in the world, exactly 10 years later, at 23, I decided to start my path into politics. That was an interesting decision, and a number of reasons why I chose to go down the political route. I left Zimbabwe because of politics and the economic situation, and I understood the impact of that. And I wanted to make sure that I was a part of something, a part of a movement that could change things. I decided I wanted to not let things just happen to me, but actually have a voice and a seat around the table and make sure I did everything I could to make the world and the society I live in a better place. So I started by joining the Labour Party. Other people will choose their own, but I chose the Labour Party. I joined the Labour Party and I got involved. I highlight those two things because there are many things that we do in life where we kind of give ourselves half-heartedly. We don't give it 150%. I gave it 150%, and opportunities began to present themselves. I started going out campaigning, networking, talking to people on doors, going to political conferences, really understanding how things were working within the political realm, especially in the UK, somewhere I wasn't too familiar about, and the process I didn't really know much about. I remember getting an email one day from one of the secretaries saying, we're looking for someone to stand for council. I remember being very excited and thinking, oh my God, this is my chance. I've been thinking about how I'm going to do more. I've been thinking about how to step up in politics. This email could be it. And then it just kind of was like, oh no, but I'm foreign. Am I allowed to stand? Oh, okay, no, I'm too young. Okay, I've got zero experience. All these doubts started to set in. And I remember thinking, Nicolle, been here before at university, throw your hat in. What is the worst that could happen? So I emailed back and said, yeah, I'd love to sit down and just talk to you to understand what that actually meant. A meeting was set up at a coffee shop, and I remember walking in and seeing a familiar face. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I think I know this person. And she welcomed me, she sat me down, and I'd known her from a previous role. Actually, in my job, she had come in through the doors and was a customer or a client, let's say. I remember thinking, thank goodness I was nice to this lady. You know what I mean? Those moments, I say you should be nice to everybody because that's just the right thing to do. But I was so glad that, we'd had positive interactions because it made that very daunting moment really pleasant. And she said to me, Nicolle, if this is what you want to do, if helping people is what you want to do, this could be the thing for you. I remember going to an event where a black female councillor was speaking, and looking at her and thinking, I can do what you're doing. I could impact my society the way that you're speaking. And that was the power of representation, seeing yourself in other people and thinking, yes, I actually can, and it is actually possible. So I stood for election. I campaigned, I knocked on doors, I did everything you possibly have to do to win. And to be honest, I had my own doubts and fears because I was thinking, I'm black, I'm a woman, I'm young, all these different things that I'm just gonna be honest. That is exactly all the self-doubt I was going through in my own mind. I even remember knocking on a door, actually. And, we were asking people, what issues do you have in the area? Do you know, any thoughts on the library? And he decided to tell me that, slavery should have never been abolished, and got really excited about going to find this book that would explain his thinking. And I remember that moment thinking to myself, right, well, this is interesting. Thought he was going to bring up potholes or, anything but that, okay? So politics has been ups, downs, lows, highs. I highlight that moment because the slap on the back, the go Nicoles, those are the easy bits. Those are the good bits. It's those really low bits, those challenging bits where you're thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I wanting to stand and represent people who have called me awful things to my face, never mind behind my back? But it is how you navigate those low moments that is really, really important. Do not be derailed, because your destiny is somewhere you have to reach. Why shouldn't you? Why should you be the only person who doesn't get to where you're meant to be going because somebody else has clearly got issues? So I ran for this election and I got elected. I was the first black person to ever be elected on that council, and I also served in the cabinet in my first term. I highlight this because if I'd never got elected, I wouldn't have been chosen to serve in the cabinet. When you face your fears, you open doors. And sometimes if you don't open the first door, you miss out the blessing on the second door. So being elected onto the council was fantastic, but then getting put onto the cabinet was a door that I would have never unlocked if I'd not walked through the first one. So there are many doors and opportunities behind the doors that you unlock when you face your fears. 2018, I decided to do this again. I think I'm just a sucker for pain. But 2018, I decided I wanted to do more, not just in the district I was working in, but in the region. I wanted to help the East Midlands region. So there was an election for a women's representative on Labour's East Midlands Regional Board. And I remember thinking, okay, right, let's do this. Started with the excitement, then again. The slowly pecking down was because I was stood against political heavyweights, women I looked up to in the movement, women with 30 years, 20 years experience, activists, OBEs, MBEs, name it, I was like, oh, maybe I'm just out of my depth here. I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to leave it. And I got a call, as you do. A friend of mine was saying, Nicolle, how's the campaign going? I was like, what campaign? I think I'm going to leave it to the pros. And she was just like, come on, Nicolle, this is ridiculous. What is actually the worst that could happen? You win or you lose. You win or you try again. So with a bit of encouragement, as we sometimes need, I stood for that position. There were 2 positions for women's representative. They counted in the votes. I couldn't believe it. I'd won. I'd won with the most votes in the room, being the youngest, being the most inexperienced. But I suppose it was maybe my passion and all the things that I was speaking about that really connected with people. Again, I say this because put yourself forward. If it's that job, go for it. If it's that promotion, apply for it. If it's that relationship, try it, if it's healthy. So there are a lot of different things that sometimes we just have to push ourselves to get to that, hopefully, positive end. So 2019, I feel like I'm in a bit of a roll, but 2019 was a year from hell. I lost my local election. I stood for European Parliament. I lost that election. I mean, Brexit, that's a whole nother topic. But we had a general election, we lost that. And Labour were fully expecting to win that in 2019, but we lost that. So it was loss after loss after loss, and rejection after rejection after rejection. Because that year, I was looking for I was working, but looking for a promotion in a job. And I'd applied for all sorts of jobs. I was even applying for jobs I felt I was maybe overqualified to go for. At this point, I just wanted to leave. And I remember just getting rejection after rejection after rejection. And it was in November that I got the job of my dreams, where it combined my love for people, business, and politics. I was so happy after the year that I'd had, because it had me questioning my purpose. I was so sure on my destiny. Everything made so much sense up until that point. Then loss, distraction, all of these things came about. So I had that job, the job I'm currently in now, working as a business expansion specialist with some of the most amazing colleagues. I even prayed for that bit, because I really wanted to work with good people, and I got them. So, I had that moment, I went through those things, and it was just, I guess, to encourage you that even though things can get difficult, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you just have to keep going. 2020 was a lot of time for self-reflection, because who knew COVID was around the corner? I reflected on where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. My passion was still politics, even more so with everything that's been going on in and around us. So I decided to get back in and do it like I'd never done before. I stand before you today, the Vice Chair of East Midlands Labour. I stand before you today representing the East Midlands on Labour's National Policy Board. I stand before you, someone who sits on multiple boards in education and professional services, hoping to make a difference in whichever space I occupy. I tell you all these things because that young girl from Zimbabwe achieved the things that she could have only dreamt of. I tell you this because facing my fears opened doors in my life. I never got to see the Spice Girls, never got to meet them. Some dreams don't come true. But I did get invited to Downing Street. I did also get invited to Buckingham Palace for afternoon tea with the Queen. So there are some dreams that do happen. So I encourage you to face your fears because it will open doors. Thank you.